Great. So let's start. Hey everyone, welcome back to Pleasure Principles, the podcast where we peel back the layers of pleasure, identity, and the transformation, digging deep into what makes life worth living and truly enjoyable. So today we are stepping into uncharted territory with a guest who is all about disruption, change, and rewriting the rule book on personal evolution. And I'm beyond excited to introduce you to Andrea Leigh. So welcome to the show, Andrea.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Lovely, lovely. So great to meet you, Andrea. And before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Andrea has taken a road most of us wouldn't dare to travel. Yes, we wouldn't dare to travel. Like from a successful 24-year career at Pfizer, navigating a gender transition in the spotlight, to reinventing herself in the chic world of fashion, she is truly a force of nature. Not only is she's the best-selling author, a two-time award-winning international speaker, and a transformational coach, but she's also proof that embracing change can lead to the profound joy and the personal growth. And yes, she's still married to her incredible wife of 22 years through all of it. So, Andrea, I can't wait to dive into your story. And thank you so much for being here today.
Well, you're very welcome. And it's an amazing story. It's been amazing to live.
Yeah, exactly. So, dear listeners, let's break some barriers today and let's start. So Andrea, like you have had the major reinventions, like from the corporate world to fashion, from one gender identity to another, and everything in between. So, what sparked that first moment when you said, I need to change my life? So, was it a kind of gradual realization or lightning bolt moment of clarity? So,
Such a great question. It was a little of both.
yeah.
I had come out of a failed marriage about 25 years ago.
Okay.
It was awful. I realized coming out of that
Mhm.
I wanted a life of experiences. I came home one day to the whole house being emptied,
Mhm.
nothing left but a little TV and a chair in the living room to watch it.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
I had a humorous response to it. I grabbed my car keys, I went to the furniture store, and I bought the same furniture over again and told the delivery men to just drop it in the footprints of the old stuff. And I moved on. And I
Mhm.
decided at that point that I wanted a life of experiences and not stuff. And while I have my stuff, the experiences that I afforded myself have been game changing. I started out with just going on experiences of seeing people like Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson play in the US Open, going to national championship football games, NASCAR races, all of this taking my daughter to them. And I just started off the journey in a great way. I
Mhm.
then decided to step into the world of triathlon and really push myself to some really high level personal achievement. And when I did that, I hung up the bike and I decided to get into sustainable agriculture design and start learning how to do that. And I got certified to do that on a global basis. I
Cool.
bought my own ranch, implemented the methods there, and then decided I wanted to ranch cattle, that I wanted to graze some cattle. So I learned how to do that. I had no experience, but I found a guy that didn't want me to have experience. He wanted to teach me his way.
Oh,
And so I did. And the whole time we did that, the whole time I did is what I was just describing. I
mm,
was in a career. I was happy, fulfilled,
mm,
still chasing though, still chasing something out there that I couldn't quite get a handle on. I had a great family. My daughter had gotten married. I had no debt. I'd paid off the ranch, yet something was still calling to me. And when I really started to dig deep and internally, I realized that there was something more for me. So, this long haul of experiences boiled down to one night of me looking in the mirror after a playful makeup session that I didn't know where that came from. I looked in the mirror and I thought, my goodness, as all that foundation and bronzer and blush went off in a playful moment, it was as if the costume I was wearing my entire life came
Mhm.
off. And so I had a conflict. And the conflict was, how do I bring this alignment? How do I bring this life into alignment so that my internal world and my external world could match up? And that's the story of Do You Still Like Football, my best selling memoir. And it's a great book. And so that's a great question. I've not been asked that way. Thank you for letting me answer it.
Oh, so lovely. Thank you so much. And so also like here I have to mention that I really love like how you described that internal battle, and it's such a relatable experience, like whether someone is making a career shift or ending a relationship or even just starting a new fitness journey. So uh, that's definitely true. So what according to you, I mean, what your advice to people who feel paralyzed by the fear of change?
Oh my goodness, that's such another good question. So what I advise people to do
Uh-huh.
is, like you said,
Mm,
if they're starting a fitness journey, if they're involved in hobbies, if they
yeah.
have a career, if they have a relationship that they're in, if each one of those things doesn't feel right, if it
Mm,
doesn't align with who you are, if you're engaged in those activities out of expectations, then start to notice how that feels. And when you start noticing your feelings and the activities you're engaged in, excuse me, you'll start to notice what resonates with you. And relationships shouldn't be stayed in out of expectations. You should seek to find fulfillment and a foundation in your relationships. They shouldn't be out there to complete you as a person. That's your job. Relationships are there to build a foundation on. And that's what my marriage was based on, a beautiful foundation that allowed us to be the best of each other. I was in a career that for a long time engaged me, but when it stopped engaging me and didn't feel right anymore and became a burden to me, I decided to change my career and go to something I loved, even if it meant costing me money or income. And so, hobbies that you engage in, do you do it just out of expectations, or are you engaged in a hobby that you really love and that fills your cup? Because even if your activities, your relationships, your career, and your hobbies, even if they're hard work and they exhaust you, if
yeah.
they are fulfilling, they should fill your cup. And so, I
Mhm.
would have people really start to notice themselves, start to notice their own feelings and how things resonate with their lives, become a noticer in their own life, not just of other people, but in their own lives. And that's when you can start to make real change, when you start to align yourself internally and externally.
Wow, that's really amazing. Thanks for mentioning this. And so the gender conversation,
Yeah.
like they can be both freeing and polarizing. Like having lived on both the sides of it, how do you see that gender as something fluid and multifaceted, like rather than rigid construct? So what do you say?
Well, I don't see it as, I
Hmm.
don't, I think it's confusing if one sees it personally as fluid going back and forth. If they
Yeah.
feel like they've got masculine energy and feminine energies, that's very normal. We all have that. We all have those energies that work inside of us to make us who we are. But what I see is, I don't see it as polarizing as the culture would have us believe it is, that the agenda is driven by politics and the politics of division, the politics of identity drive this. But my experience shows that the gender discussion really isn't as polarizing as people would have us believe. My experience is an experience of a lot of people with around surrounding me, from my family to my friends and colleagues to my clients. that I was calling on when I made the transition, to the customers I called on after the transition. And what I really found was that most people are indifferent to us. They're not polarized by us. And I don't mean by us as in transgent people who have made a transition. I'm talking about all of us as
Yeah.
humans. That most people are just simply indifferent to us because they're
Hmm.
involved in their own lives. And so I call it a compassionate indifference. It's an indifference that basically comes from a place that they don't want to judge me, and because they don't want to be judged back. And if
Hmm.
one can realize that the people around them are indifferent to them, then they
Hmm.
don't have to worry anymore about what people are thinking and projecting their fears onto them. That if
Yeah.
you realize people are indifferent to you, that can be very freeing. And it's a freedom to be yourself without a fear of judgment. And when I realized that people simply weren't thinking about me like I might fear they are, then I was just free, and free to be a really nice version of myself. And so the gender discussion has not been polarizing to me. It's been a nice change. It's been a welcome change. I also invited people in before I transitioned, all of
Hmm.
my clients and all of my colleagues, to travel the journey with me, so that it wasn't something I didn't talk about to them. I did talk about it, and I invited them in so they got to a little bit of a to journey with me. And I think that that was really instrumental and important in making my transition a personal success, and one that people could really relate to. It's hard to understand, that's for sure. And I'm not trying to get anybody to understand it, because it's a very hard thing to understand, even for those individuals that go through it themselves. And it's hard to articulate. I've just gotten good at it and understand where I'm coming from. So it makes me able to communicate it with a lot of people that are seeking to understand.
Exactly. That's so lovely. And also, like, what here, I have to say that you have been married to your wife for 22 years, which is
Yes.
definitely beautiful and so beautiful. But how did you both navigate the changes in your identity while maintaining such a strong relationship?
Well, we had a very strong relationship, and I did realize that my marriage was a real foundation that I could build from. And so it was build a different version of myself, something that resonated more with who I was on the inside. And so, interestingly enough, she saw some of the changes coming before I would admit them. And so we navigated those changes together. It was not easy. It was very difficult. It's difficult on a family because the family has to grieve the loss of the individual that they envisioned spending their lives with, whether that was a husband, a son, a father, a daughter, um, husband, wife. All of these people have relationships with us as individuals, and they envision their life with us. And so when we change on them, it changes their perception and their vision of what's to come. And so they have to let that go. I was blessed with a wonderful family and a wonderful life, and a wonderful wife. And she had to grieve the loss of the masculine Andy to accept Andrea in return. And she did. And it's not been easy, but it's been great. And it's a change, and we're happy. We're just happy differently. But it's a wonderful journey for both of us. And we are both very supportive of each other.
Yeah. Wow. So like, what advice would you give to the couples, the newly couples, or maybe couples who are already married for long years, who are facing major personal shifts, like whether related to the identity, career, or life ambitions?
Well, I think that's a great question, because there's very few people, really, there's very few people that are dealing with the gender struggle as a married couple. Um, so I would tell couples to look at your relationship, um, and look at it as a foundation to build individual, to really become a whole and complete individual. Um, you can do that together. Your couple, your partner, is
Mm.
not meant to complete you. That movie, the Tom Cruise movie, Jerry Maguire, sounded so romantic and tugged at our hearts when he said that line, "You complete me." Or she said that, I can't remember who said the line now. But what's so funny is that marriages and relationships aren't meant to complete us. They're meant to build foundations from, so that we can move forward as individuals and be stronger, and that we are on the journey together. But we come into this world alone. We leave the world alone, and that time that we're together with our partner and our loved one needs to be in a supportive capacity. So, because we travel it alone, we travel our own individual life journeys alone, and we're choosing to do it with this person together.
Exactly. Wow. Lovely. And also, like, you mentioned that being a disruptor, especially in spaces dominated by the rigid systems like corporate healthcare, what does disrupting traditional power structures mean to you? And why is it necessary for personal growth and the societal change?
Well, it's being a disruptor is great personally, from the standpoint, and this isn't, being a disruptor is not a negative. It can sound negative, from the time you're a little kid saying you're disruptive in school. We're talking about a disruption that maybe needs to happen at a professional level for somebody that wants to chart a different path. That For me, um, for instance, when I decided to transition, I didn't within the workplace. I worked for a very large global powerhouse company. And so they were progressive. They weren't going to push back on the transition or accepting of me. But the way we went about it was disruptive. I went to each one of my teammates and spoke to them about my intent to change my life and my career. And I spoke to them each one individually, and they accepted me. It didn't mean that they agreed with what I was doing, but they accepted it, and we had a path forward together. Yet there was that organizational reaction based on their thought of it being a polarizing activity. So they wanted to put them through sensitivity training. Well, my team had just shown a lot of sensitivity and acceptance of me. So instead of pushing back, we just did the sensitivity training together, and I led it. And that's disruptive to the normal way of doing things. I didn't need memos on the correct pronoun usages. I didn't need memos from the headquarters to talk about the right restrooms to be used. I just made the choice myself and took it upon myself to exit a little early and be patient with people. Some of them had known me 20 years or longer, and wait for them to just respond and come around and respond. They did. And so that was very disruptive. It was disruptive to go into the fashion world and work with clients in a way that was very normal 20 years ago. But now, in a day where many companies believe that they can inundate customers with emails and sales and promotions to get their business, I was disruptive because I still operated under the old assumptions that just take care of the customer and you'll be rewarded for it. And I was, and my businesses were. And so that was disruptive to the corporation that was wanting to conduct business in a new way. I didn't find as effective as the old ways. That was disruptive. And now I'm in a field that is disruptive in a political atmosphere, cultural atmosphere, because I was a white conservative, Harley riding, gun carrying man who decided to step into a gender transition and become one of the most accepted roles, and step into one of the most ostracized, polarizing roles that are in society today. And I changed the narrative. Uh, I the narrative can be changed. I don't fit the narrative, and I bust the stereotype of someone that's made a gender transition, an older man who now lives as a successful woman. And I don't feel unsupported. I don't feel ostracized. I don't feel unwelcome. In fact, I'm living my very best life in conservative part of the country, like Oklahoma and Texas, feeling that I've been welcome. I have been supported, and I've been successful. And so I look at things in a different way. And I think it would behoove people to not listen to the divisive politics and maybe listen to a new narrative that's being talked about, and that maybe we can move forward together with a little critical thinking and not the division of in the politics of identity that the culture wants to continue to use.
Exactly. I totally agree on this. Definitely. Oh, so lovely. I mean, Andrea, like I'm so inspired by your courage, your wisdom, and the ability to disrupt without losing grace. So definitely your journey is proof that transformation is never just about one aspect of ourselves. It's holistic, touching every corner of our lives. So
Yes.
for everyone who is listening, yeah, you're saying something, Andrea.
No, I agree with you. It is every aspect of our life.
Yeah, exactly. So for everyone who is listening right now, I hope that you have been inspired to rethink like how you approach change, pleasure, and authenticity. And Andrea's story is a powerful reminder that growth comes when we say yes to uncertainty.
Yes.
And if you haven't already, then go grab Andrea's memoir, Do You Still Like Football? And dive deeper into her incredible journey. And remember that disrupting the norm isn't about tearing things down. It's all about creating the space for something new and beautiful. So thank you, Andrea, for sharing this space with us today. And for all the listeners, stay curious, stay bold, and I'll see you next time on Pleasure Principles. Till then, thank you so much.
Thank you.